Sorry, because this takes me a good hour, and I just realized because you guys don't have HDMI here. No, it's not HDMI either. So I can't plug my tablet in at the same time as I present, so it's probably going to die before the end of this. So we'll see how well it works. I'm used to using HDMI, and I can plug in a power source. So I don't know why, but every time I plug in these, they've been changing my phone, so you can't even read here. 3 steps to awesome rights is what it says. Put 2001, my second semester of teaching, because I sucked as a traditional teacher. I could barely keep myself awake. But I 6 years. Years. As bad as I thought it was going to be, though. I don't like the ones. The 6th graders, I cannot. They're too small. And I was always afraid I was going to make them cry, and some I did. Some deliberately, and some not so deliberately. But yes, I've been doing that. I teach now Spanish 3 mostly, so I teach mostly 8th graders. I currently been teaching at Ike Middle School in Roseville, California. We are an IB middle school, which means all of our kids have language all 3 years. And IB requirements say you have to have 50 hours, and we're on trimester. So in a trimester, they do not have 50 hours of instruction. So we can't do the wheel where the kids get to try out different languages and then choose one for 7th grade. So they have a full level 1 in 6th grade, a full level 2 in 7th grade, and a full level 3 in 8th grade. They have to have an 80% or better to move on, but they could conceivably end up in high school at a level 4 to start. So it has impacted our high school. Because our high school is in a different district than our middle school and elementary, we're K through 8 district, and the high school is a 9 through 12. They don't get credit for their years at the middle school like some districts do, or joint. So they don't get credit for level 1 or level 2 or level 3. They have to start in level 4 as their first year to get their 2 years in. So they don't know that other school districts give them credit for that kind of thing, so we don't tell them because they would get really upset. Again, they keep changing my fonts here, but you can help us stay green. Download the presentation and handout here at teachforjune.com/CIIA. Yeah, I don't know why it keeps changing my fonts. It's never done that before. But it's teachforjune.com/CIIA, and it has all my handouts there. So stay tuned until the end for the ultimate secret that will absolutely, positively change your life. And no, I'm not kidding. It will change your life because I believe in the 4-letter word, life. You need to have one because we do not get paid enough not to. Baby wages. Even back in the 80s of $3 an hour per kid, I'd make a lot more money. But before preparing your quick write, setting your expectations, and giving clear instructions will make quick writes go much quicker. Just anything else. If you don't work, why do we have that goal? Because the average native speaker can do that in their own language. And it's not a random set of words, it's a cohesive set of words. What is level that they're writing? It's going to obviously be more complex in an AP level 3, level 4 than it's going to be in a level 1. But the goal is still the same. The average person can write 100 words in 5 minutes in their native language. When the class average hits 100 words, I drop the time by 30 seconds. So I keep track of the number of words, but like a growth chart, not a grade. So I put it in my grade book, so it'll do the math for me, but it goes in a category weighted 0, so it does not count in their grade. When I see that the class average hits 100 words or more, I drop the time by 30 seconds. I have on my board period 1, period 2, period 3, etc., so they can see the results of the last 3, so they can kind of compete with their class, so they can see where they are with the rest of their classmates. Because I'll say, really, period 2? Period 3 went down last week. You ever let them beat you like that? You're better than period 3. Let's go. Trying to motivate them to go, and they can see it up there. Because I do give a prize to the first class that writes 100 words at 5 minutes. A pizza party on me. Now, our school is famous for the $5 Little Caesars pizza, so they I'm like, it's a Pizza Hut pizza. So they're like, ooh, because they never get that. They get you get cheese or pepperoni, and I take orders, of different kinds of pizza, and I order from pizza costs me about $100. But it's worth it. I only do it for one class, the first class that gets there. So they compete. Keep track of each student's word count, but not for a grade. I know there's a lot of teachers who count the grade. If they write 80 words, they get 80%. If they write 90 words, they get 90%. But here's the problem. They could write 90 crappy words. And then someone else writes 30 awesome words. And I don't want them to get the idea that if they write more, they're going to get a better grade, so they just fill the page with crappy words. So I don't grade that way. We'll talk about how I grade it, but I don't ever grade that way. I don't think it's right, because I said some of my really awesome kids write a lot less words, but the level of language they put on that page is a lot. And so I want them to reward. You can get this on the website, teachforjune.com/. I love this paper because kids can't count. They can't. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Oh, I got to start over again. Trying to time. So they write 1 per. They're like, is me gusta 1 word or 2? Well, is there a space in between? 2 words, don't you? Now French, when you have to put the apostrophe, that's only 1 word credit they give. They don't get to spread that out. And then kids try to put the punctuation on a separate line, so I get a dash, just a period on it. I'm like, that did not count. So, 1 word for dash. The kids like writing this way. They get used to it. And when they write something that doesn't get counted, they still want to write with that paper because they like that paper. And it highlights the 100 words right here, so they can see when they hit it. And it goes 5 words across. It works where they get 190. In level 2 the first week, because they've been doing it all in level 1, they usually ask for 2 papers because in 10 minutes they can really write a lot. On the back of the paper is the rubric that I grade them on, so they see that all the time that's there. They'll write up here at the top the number, which one we're doing. Is it number 1, the first one we're doing, or is it the number 15th one we're doing? And the time, whatever time we're at, so we can keep track of that. And their name and their date, and we just write for the time. But here they can calculate their number of words really easily just by looking. I don't have to waste class time doing that. Words are easily counted with this special paper. Students write the number of the quick write, first, second, 32nd, etc., and the number of minutes on the top of the paper. And at the end, they write the total number of words, and they circle it. I don't care where they put it in the paper. We practice numbers this way because I'll ask them, ¿Cuántas personas escribieron más de 50 palabras? How many people wrote more than 50 words? Keep your hands up. How many people wrote more than 60 words? More than 70 words? And the hands start going down. More than 80 words? More than 90 words? More than 100 words? And then it starts all dropping down. I've only got a few kids, and I ask them, how many words did you write? So we get the practice of the numbers every week. And then I'll ask kids, after everybody's got that, and I'll say, how many kids improved over last week? So I'll say it in Spanish again. They'll raise their hands. And then just so we can point out the kids and they can see that who are improving and what the numbers they got. Proper names must fit on only 1 line. They can only count for 1 word. So I don't care if it's John, Jingleheimer, Schmidt. It's squished on 1 line. Because I had kids, I taught in an Asian school, and so they had their American name, Asian, like 7 names listed together, and they try to get 7 words out of that by putting all the names on there. Oh no, that's how you're going to get work. So if you're going to give yourself 7 names, that's perfectly fine. They must all squish on 1 line. But it's a proper noun, so it goes on 1 line. You only get 1 word. Some all, But I'm not going to go read them and subtract the words from their count. I'm just not going to do that. So I say it's got to squish on one line. Here's my spiel to students. When the first one that we do, they set them up because they're nervous, especially the first year. And do level 1, they know what to expect. Or a new student freaks out. So I tell them, we'll be right. Do your best each week. The goal is to write 100. Reach that goal each week. It's just a goal. Oh, is it going to die now on me? 10% close. Okay. 10% weeks ago. Focus on writing the best language you know how. At random, I will grade at least 2 per grading period. The key word is at least, because it's really only 2. But if I say only 2, when the second one's graded, they're like, "Whew, I'm free until next grading period." I say at least 2. There's times I've been able to get 3 in, but it's usually only 2. You will not know which ones I'll be grading in advance. In other words, you got to try every one. Sorry, kids. You'll need to do your best each week. When I do grade them, I will not be nitpicky. I do not want to give my kids heart attacks, and I have kids who are on the verge of them already at 14. Although spelling and grammar are important, they are not as important as your ideas. I don't want them to hesitate because they don't know how to say something. I don't want them using English, but I want them to put the words on page to stressing about how to say it right. I grade on 2 factors. Comprehensibility. Can the average non-English speaking person understand what you wrote? So I say, if I go to the mall and I pick a random Jorge, can he understand what you wrote? If he can't, then that's not a good thing. I don't want a teacher because we're sympathetic. The only sympathetic readers you're ever going to find. Teachers. In the real world, they don't exist. And complexity. How complex are your sentences? Short and choppy are C sentences. Longer, often with ands, buts, or ors, are B sentences. And this is basically my rubric in kids speak. This is what they can tell me back about how they're graded. Even longer, often with becauses, sinces, and therefores. And have them write about. Student's choice. I do that a lot. Not all of them. The first few of the year are all choice to get them in the habit. The year. Use vocabulary. Do not give them a list of 10 or 15 words to use. That's way too many. 3 to 5, and 5 is a little on the too many side. I usually do 3 is my ones. It's hard to put 5 words and get them all in the same thing unless you're teaching them. I don't recommend. A random topic. The person who's sitting next to you farted. ... Go. I teach middle school. They can run with that. They can run with that. Plus, they get to learn the word farted. They love that. And in Spanish, we throw farts. There's no verb fart. We throw farts in Spanish. So they really love that too. Use a particular grammatical structure. So in the beginning, I'll tell them, please use the past tense too. But then I want to get away from that, and I want them to learn context clues. Write about what you did over the weekend, and they should know that that's the past tense. What I'm thinking about is AP and IB exam down the line. And so I want to water it down for them so the first time they see it is not in that IB or AP class. Because AP and IB is at least a 4-year class, if not more. It's not just 1 year. What happened before something, because I never want them to give me a retell, because that is memorization, what they remembered. I want them to create language. So what happened before the story that we talked about did? Now that's the problem. I have a charger, but I need an HDMI cord that fits. You don't have HDMIs. So when it says lower, I'm going to just plug it in and just read it off there. They don't need to see that's what I'll do.
Sorry.
It's okay. No worries. but thank you. Write a new ending to the story that we did. What do you think will happen next in the story, novel, or reading? So that's a level 3 because I'm having them predict, and I'm having them use the future tense usually with that. Or I can change it what would happen, so I get the conditional in there. But by then I've taught them how to read the question and use the verb tense from the question. Success. Writing makes students anxious. It really does. The only thing that makes them more anxious is speaking. Students break out in a sweat. They really do. We need to be cognizant of this fact and give students the tools to be successful. So, story, because a Common Core, we have to cross-curricular teach. I'm expected to teach math and English. I don't get paid enough to teach Spanish, so I have to also teach English and math at the same salary. But math doesn't have to teach English. I don't know how that works. English doesn't have to teach. A pattern will. I'll write it on a Google Doc in front of the screen or copy from me, and I'll ask them questions. We need to build a character. Guys, right now we're introducing our character in this first paragraph. See how we're telling our character? We're taking some time to who they are, where they live. Guys, we're now going to in English class, that's called a conflict. You hear about conflict in your story, we call it a problem in here. So I walk them through how to do it as we do it. And then we write the story together. So they kind of got a demo model on how to do it. As you write, project on a screen using computer or document projector. Students copy as you write. Now, I always say, do not start the sentence until I put the period on, because I might change it as we go along. You get some ideas. You go, oh, that's a really one. I'm going to change it. So until I put the period, don't copy. Ask leading questions to co-create a story, because if I just tell them a story, they're not engaged. I want them interactive, so I'm asking them, so what do you think this character should be doing? And I'm asking them in the target language, how old is he? Where does he go next? And we ask those questions, and I get the answers from the kids. We decide which one we want. We'll either vote or roll a dice or something to figure it out. And we co-create because they're more engaged that way. Plus, it doesn't get boring for me because I teach 6 out of 7 classes, so I've got 6 different stories. Point out each step of the story creation. Hey, we're introducing the problem here. We're trying to solve the problem here, but we fail at doing so. It's the standard story setup of every story you've ever read or watched, whether it be a movie or a sitcom or anything. It's all done the same way. Introduce characters, set up a problem, try to solve it, not solve it, do something else and solve the problem. That's how everything is done. The only thing that does not do that is the sitcom. They only introduce the characters in the first episode, then the repeated characters. They don't have to keep introducing them over and over again. But everything else follows that same story format. So introduce characters, set up the problem, attempt to solve the problem but fail. I always picture this with I Love Lucy. I used to watch that with my grandma. That's how she learned English. And the part where they can't keep up with the chocolates, and she's trying to shove them in her face, but it's failing. So that's the part I always do there. And solve the problem. This is usually when Ricky goes, Lucy, and the problem gets solved. Usually, our creation. All time to point out any major grammar points. When I'm talking to kids, I don't point them out, but here I've got a little time, so I might point out. Explanation of one of my friends, she always said, talking about grammar is like talking about sex. Answer the question and change the subject. So if the kids ask, are there 2 past tenses in Spanish? Yes. Perfect. This is how you. And here are the 18. The 47. Use this one. Does it make any sense to you? They're all glazed over. I just wanted to know if there were more than one. So that's how I do it. They're not going to understand a grammar. They don't know grammar in their own language. They really don't. And I didn't know grammar in my own language when I was a kid. I learned it in German class, but they at least taught the grammar back then. They don't even teach it anymore in English classes. The kids do not even know what a simple, compound, and complex sentence are. They don't barely know what first, second, and third person are. They really have gotten away from all of that. So I don't have the time to teach them what a direct object pronoun and indirect object pronoun. I just don't bother. So I just tell them what they need to know and then change the subject as quickly as possible. Keep info to less than 30 seconds. So I might just say, guys, you notice this word ends in an A because that's a girl word, and it's got an all rhyme. And I have to explain the grammar part to it. Well, I always tell them, A's are for girls, O's are for boys, and E's are for hermaphrodites because they cover both. I teach middle school. I've got to keep their attention somehow. They always warn us, though, in 7th grade, they teach sex ed 7th grade, the last week of school. And they always say, well, it's that time of year, let us know. They don't want to teach it earlier because the kids start learning to say penis and vagina and they just shout it out in the classroom. So they give us a warning, a heads up, and they are very courteous to do it the last week of school so we don't have to hear it for a week. It's really bad if they do it right before winter break and then you got to listen to it all the rest of the year. So focus on the meaning. So I usually, when I explain grammar, I explain the meaning, what it actually means, because if it doesn't change the meaning, it goes right over Americans' heads. So gender, it's something that's very late acquired if you study language acquisition, because it doesn't carry meaning. Whether you say el hombre guapa or el hombre guapo, it doesn't matter, it does not change the meaning. We know one is correct and one is not, but meaning to an American does not change. So it's really late acquired. But hablo and habla, that does change meaning, so that's easier for the kids to understand. So I'm together. Example, the S on the end of makes it mean you do it. In Spanish. Verb end in MS because it's we do it. Success. Clear instructions. Rules. Tell them all proper. How many words? Don't put an English word in there. Don't start a sentence your butt can't catch. If you can't finish the sentence without going into English language, don't start the sentence. Find a different sentence to write or my 8th graders freak out. Well, my 8th graders don't freak out anymore because they've been doing it for 3 years. But when I taught the 6th, they freak out. They're like, I could barely write an essay in English. And they think that we've got to write it with a 6th grade or a 7th grade or an 8th grade brain. I said, oh no, you are just born. You are in elementary school. I want you to write a kindergarten essay. And I show them what one looks like in English. Like, oh, I can do that. There's a cat. The cat is big. The cat is fat. The cat runs. Good job. That's what I'm expecting for a level 1. And I'll show them like a 1st grade paper for level 2 and a 2nd grade paper for level 3. So I set their expectations because they think they have to write a 5-paragraph essay with a thesis, sentence, and supporting and all that stuff they do in English. I'm like, oh, God, you're not there yet. We're just not even there. I just want words on the page. Can we get there first? How to write a story. We talked about how to write the story. Make sure you're not going to have probably time to get all the steps in there, but at least introduce your character, set up a problem, and solve it. At least get those 3 aspects. You probably won't have time in the time that you're writing, especially when you get down to 6 or 7 minutes, to write all those other things, but at least you have the basic structure in there. They don't have to obviously finish the story in that time, because when the time's up, the time's up. So introduce the characters, set up the problem, attempt to solve the problem, but fail. Solve the problem. Now, here's some things that kids say. I could never write 100 words in whatever language. Well, take your time to describe characters and places. The kids want to just write the action. There's a boy, he runs to school, he cries, he goes home. They're done. They're like, I can't write anymore. Well, no, of course not. You got the Cliff Notes version. They don't even know what that is. I'm dating myself. So, if you're telling about a boy, what does he look like? What does he like to do? What is he running? Is he running running, run, whatever. Take your time to describe what's going on, and you'll get more words. Ever get stuck? Add a friend. I guess a friend just pops out of nowhere. Just add them in, and then you have time to sit there and describe the new character. So that happens usually at oh, 5. We're getting close. Add a character. Move the character. Now let's go to Piggly Wiggly. We already went to Walmart, went to Target. Let's go to Piggly Wiggly now. You know, he ate at McDonald's the dollar menu. He's tried the Burger King dollar menu. He's now at the Taco Bell dollar menu. Let's see, who else can we find? The Wiener Schnitzel dollar menu. He's running out of dollars. Gamify it. That's where I have that little competition amongst my students. And I call them out. I'm like, period 2, come on. Right now you're looking like losers because look at your time up there. I know you can do better than that. Are you really going to let period 3 beat you? Let's go. And it usually motivates them. I'm like, period 3 is only one step away from that pizza. Are you really going to let them have that pizza? I like to encourage healthy competition amongst my classes. I have a scoreboard showing the current time for each period and how many words on average for the past few quick writes. It looks something like this, except it's not nice and typed out like that. It's in my handwriting along the board. But it shows the periods, what time they're at, and the number of words. And then I usually put a star next to the ones where it's over 100 so they can see this went down 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. This class hasn't gone down at all. That's why they're still at 10 minutes. This class went down 1 time here. This class went down 1, 2, and 3. This class went down only on the 3rd time. In these ones.
So do you start at 10 minutes or do you start off at a...
I start at 10 minutes. Okay. And I work the way down. Some people start at 5 minutes and like to watch the time, the number go up. But I find my kids get more motivated when the time, because they don't like to do it. So going from 10, they're like, there's a goal. Let's get this down to 5 minutes because then we only have to waste do 5-minute time.
And it's based on when everyone has 100 words?
No, class average. When the class average does. Okay. There are some kids who'll never get there, and I always have a rule: if you moan and complain, I go, es la hora de escribir, and I go, vamos a hacerlo 2 veces, hoy y mañana. So when they complain, I forgot I'm not speaking only Spanish speakers. I say, I guess I'm hearing you want to do it twice, once today and once tomorrow, and they learn really quick to stop complaining. Except level 1.
Okay, that was my question.
Level 1, 3 months in.
3 months in? Okay.
Level 2 and on, I want to start as close to the first day of school. Because they left. So I try to do it on the first or second day of school. Even 3 days in, they're already hearing enough Spanish in there that now they're starting to incorporate stuff that they're learning this year, and I don't want that. I want to see where they came from. Whatever. The first, usually 3 to 4 is of whatever you want to write about. School, I have to tell them school appropriate. It is middle school, so I tell them school appropriate. Yeah. Well, I know, but it's worse. Yeah, it's worse. It was bad in high school. It's 100 times worse in middle school. They have no filter whatsoever. At least they get a little red face when they say something inappropriate in high school. Not in middle school. No. The things I've been told in middle school. And you realize I'm a teacher, right? Yeah, they don't. The first class to average 100 words at 5 minutes gets a pizza party on Profe. So when I taught 2 levels, level 2 and 3, I haven't done that in the last couple of years, then the first level 2 to get it would get one, and the first level 3 would get it, because I can't have 2 compete with 3. It's not fair. But last year I taught only 3, so I only had to worry about it once. But at most, it would happen however levels you teach. French, I apologize. German, I apologize. You have 9 levels in 5 periods, so I feel sorry for you. But in Spanish, we don't. I only teach 2. Assessment. I don't know why it keeps changing my fonts. Assessing writing has always been tedious, time-consuming, and an ink-filled mess. Does that look familiar? My sister's an elementary school teacher in Michigan, and it's illegal. They cannot, not illegal, it's against school rules to use red ink anymore because kids have gotten associated red ink as bad. So they cannot show bias of any color. They must rotate equally amongst the colors as they grade so that there is no color grading prejudice. So she's got her like Crayola 8 and she's just rotating through every week. This week it'll be blue, next week it'll be red, so that one color is not stigmatized. I couldn't do elementary. But this is what we look like. This is where you give up that 4-letter word called life. But it does not have to be. Studies have shown negligible gains between corrected essays, singularly corrected essays, and merely positive comments. And I'm going to take the moment here. You're going to lose the screen for that, let me tell you. So, the study has shown that if you try to correct everything, it doesn't really help. You know this because they look at the grade, they crumple it up, they toss it in the garbage, and you're like, that was 40 minutes of my life. And here. Well, I'll just look at subject-verb agreement and just grade for that all the way through. Again, doesn't help. The same wadding of the paper. But the poor thing. I even asked your English teacher, I'm like, does she have a problem writing in English? Because I cannot understand a word that she's writing in Spanish. So my first inclination, and it's so bad that I say, is there a problem in English? And she goes, oh yeah, she's a really poor writer in English too. Because what you don't realize is the ceiling of your second language ability is always your first. So once you hit that ceiling, I cannot improve your second language till your first language improves. So if you're a low reader in your first language, you're never going to exceed that. The only exception to that is if you were born in one country and you left right around the start of school age. Because then it's going to supersede. You didn't have enough experience in that. But if you started school at any number of lengths of years in a native language and then try, you're not going to supersede it. So it was problematic. So she had a problem there, and I was like, oh, there's no point in reading this because it's an F every single time. So all I did was put a smiley face on it. That's all I put, was a smiley face. Smiley face. Didn't read it. Didn't bother. I knew it was garbage. Smiley face. She's like, I got a smiley face on my paper. She was proud talking to her friends. I got a smiley face on my paper. I'm going to try for 2 this week. Well, I didn't give her 2 that week. But the next week I did. I gave her 2. Again, still crap. Didn't bother reading. It was crap. And she's like, I got 2 smiley. And she was so proud of having the smiley faces. So I randomly put, this week was only 1. Next week I gave her 3. I just randomly put on there. And she was an F. I mean, it was an F. As low of an F as I could give her. I mean, it was really, if I could have given her a negative grade, it would have been. It was really, really bad. And I didn't know what I could do. I mean, I was doing everything that I knew what to do, but it wasn't really helping. And the problem was her English. And she was a native English speaker. Just she had poor English skills. But just those positive little, I didn't put comments. I just put a smiley face. And it got so hard because it took time consuming. ... smile, circle was too much effort. So I found Crayola has markers that work like a stamp. And they have like stars. And so I just go bloop, and it would make a little smiley face on it. Yeah, do not use stickers. It costs money. I still have the very first stamp I bought, the ink pad. It's the everlasting never dies one. It's been going for 18 years. They're like, why are stamps always blue? Because that's the color I bought that day, and that's what we're going to have until I retire, because it says I'll never need another one. And so it's been lasting this time. But stamps go a lot longer than stickers. Stickers cost money. when I had to grade, I was like, D. And now generally, she was really at the D. I hadn't done anything, other than put the smiley faces on her paper. And we got her by the end of the year to a C. With just the smiley faces. No corrections, none of that stuff, none of that effort, just the smiley face, and as lazy as I possibly could, stamp and put it on there. It really, really worked for her. So of the 3, positive comments got the best results, even if only negligible. So why would you waste your time doing that for 20, 30, or however many kids you have if it's not going to really benefit? Now, there are those few anal kids who want to know every mistake they've ever made. So this is what I do. You are welcome to come before school or after school with your paper in your hand, and I will go painstakingly over it with you. Not during lunch. Why? Because I want them to invest. If it's going to make any impact, and it probably won't, only confidence is the only impact it's going to make, they've got to put the effort. They're already trapped at school at lunch, so they have no problem coming in at lunch. I don't want to give up my lunch. I already have kids, and kids are socializing in my room at lunch, but I don't want to give up my lunch. I want to be able to eat, relax, and enjoy the kids socializing where I don't have to be, the teacher on at the time during my lunchtime. So I do it before or after school. If I'm lucky, I may get 5 kids who come once over the course of the whole year because they don't want to invest that time. I know it's not really going to help them in the long run. But if they want it, it helps their confidence. I'll do it, but you have to come in and meet me 50% of the time. So they come in the morning or they come in after school, and I will go through it as long as it takes. But most kids, it's only really the really top anal kids who are really anal about their grade who will come in more than once. And it's really less than 5 kids. I don't mind spending the time with those kids. But I did on 40 kids times 5 or 6 classes that you teach, watching them crumble it up and toss it in the garbage, not even looking at it. And having them, I have to do that, and then I have them rewrite it. That doesn't work either. That's just more work for you. Do you want to have a life? You're out by 3, you have summers off, every holiday off, you have weekends off. Must be nice. Yeah. I do leave at the time at the end of the day, but I get there at 7, 2 hours before school starts and work, because that's when I don't get interrupted by teachers or kids. Yeah. Unless you put the savings away to do that, we don't get paid that time. That's unpaid time. So, yeah, you can take this off too, and just like I do. On average, it takes me 30 to 45 minutes to read 34 papers. I read them real quick because I don't have to mark them all up. I can read, is it comprehensible, and how complex is the language. I can do that really, really quick. And I can read, and I don't just skim them, I read them from top to bottom. But I can get through about 30 to 45, because I have that's roughly where my class sizes are, somewhere in that range. And I can read them in 45 minutes, because that's my class period time. So my prep time is 45 minutes, I've read them. I got a class done. Comprehensibility, we're going to go over it when we go to grading in a little bit. But how comprehensible the language was and how complex. When we talked about it earlier with simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. Yep.
And there's no marking. You just identify on a rubric where they're at.
Yep. Yep. I don't mark it up at all.
And with that, if you have multiple levels, I know that the 100 words, that stays the same throughout it, but when you look at it in the complexity and you're looking at... We're
going to hit the rubric. I'll show you the rubric when it comes up.
Like an intermediate and how that...
No, I'll show you. There's a rubric. I'll show you.
Okay.
It'll be charged by then. We'll get that. So how do I do it? I keep going the wrong way here. I don't mark up papers, number one. That saves a lot of time. And I grade using a rubric. And I limit my comments to one positive comment. Sometimes all I can say is nice handwriting. literally. I got to stretch. Some of them are that bad that I've got to, write. And it's because it's poor, like the poor girl, it was poor, she had English skills. It's not usually the language skills. It's usually, but sometimes that's all I can say. Or like one kid, he always wrote inappropriate stories. So one time, thank you for being appropriate this time. Because normally his stories were rated on the R range. Every throw. You want the principal to do this? He's like, well, he doesn't understand Spanish. I go, he understands, so it's close. He can figure it out. And what I help him with. Improvement comment. Or there's the right. I'll show you the rubric when it comes up. That I circle it, or there's a blank if it's not on the list, and I write it in. But I don't circle everything that's wrong. I circle the next thing I want them to work on that will make the biggest impact. One thing. When they've got that one done, I might circle it for 3 or 4 papers because they still are working on it, which is fine. And then when I think that they've got that, then I'll circle something new. But the kids always want to know what they could do to improve. Even the A kids want to know what they can do to improve.
You keep records of all this?
No, I don't. No, I don't remember it either. I'm old. I better remember what I ate for breakfast this morning.
3 or 4 times, and then you move on to something else. How do you know?
Well, because usually they're really consistent in their errors. So it's usually the first thing is subject-verb agreement. That's usually what I'm usually doing, or tense. Those are the 2 that I circle the most. So I'm just looking in general. I can see kind of, I can look back and see what their grade was last time and see if they're improving along that way. But unless it's something really minute or specific, that I might put it in the comments in the grade book. But I don't usually bother. Because it's usually for them more than it's for me. And it's usually because they always ask, what can I do to improve? And so this gives me that little feedback for doing so. So rubrics. And now I'm going to put this back in. I got enough juice for a moment, then I'll have to unplug it again. Here is our rubric. If I can find the hole here, there it is. Okay. There's a copy in the handout, so I won't go, and it's coming out really blurry up here. I'll go over the basics of it, but not everything in detail. You can read it on your own. It's in color for them, for me, but it's in black and white for them, so this shows up as a gray area, but they know that this is the target area because I've highlighted it, so they know that's their goal, which is the B. It's analytic and it's holistic all at the same time. So I can check each individual box, and then wherever the most boxes are, I can circle that as the overall grade. And get it that way. So here, this is the different ones. Students I've been working on in level 3. If we've been working on, and they're starting in the past tense, they're not writing at instruction level. Kind of an overall encompassing thing. It got more details here, but basically, if it's short, choppy sentences, it's in the C range. And then there are even longer sentences, more descriptive sentences, often with therefores, becauses, and sinces. So they're your subordinating clause sentences, your verb kickers in German, those kind of sentences in there. So that's what I'm expecting. But if they're writing these because, ands, or therefore, because, therefores, or sinces sentences, but with present tense in a level 3, and we haven't been working on that, they're not going to get this. They're going to go way down into here range, probably in the low C, because it is comprehensible, because they're below instruction level. They're not showing me what they're learning. They're showing me what they remembered from level 1. And I want to see what they're learning from the new stuff. So I communicate that with them. The first time they see this rubric is not when they're getting graded on it. We discuss the rubric. I actually give them samples. I typed up kids' papers from previous years with errors in them, and then I hand them out and they grade them and we discuss. They usually always grade harder than I do. And we discuss why the grade it is. So we go over this rubric so they understand it really, really well. So then here's the one thing I did well. I write it in. And then one thing I need to work on next time. Longer sentences, add details, add dialogue, organize ideas, increase vocabulary, verb tense, no English because they're using English. So the common ones I usually put in there, if there's problems, it's usually verb tense or English. For the kids who are really doing well, I'm telling you what to do better. It's usually add dialogue. Is one I usually have them do because they don't put dialogue in there. And it's an easy way to increase words anyway, to put dialogue in there. Plus I teach them how to grammatically write the dialogue and not cheat with American quotation marks. I teach them the actual ones and the difference between the angular ones in Spanish and then the colon and the long dash, the dialogue versus the other ones. So we talk about those so they can teach them the right way to do it. Salud. If it's comprehensible by a native with no English ability, it's at least a C. Because I don't want that. And I want to make sure that if I were to drop this in some podunk part of some country where they barely even heard the word English before, can they understand it? Long words are B. Even longer sentences, because, sinces, therefores, those are our A's. Yes?
So even if they, in that 10 minutes, they write 30 words in that, including like the because of senses, therefores, that would be A quality.
It would be. It has to be. I tell them one A sentence does not make an A make. And multiple. I teach them the word preponderance. There must be a preponderance of those sentences. So it can't just be one, and it can't just be two, but it's got to be a good.
For example, it was 30 words and they're all short, choppy sentences.
That's a C.
That'd be a C.
Yeah.
Okay.
But sometimes I have those 30 sentences and they're overwhelmingly awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't want to come.
That's what I was
Yeah.
because the word count's just the goal.
Just the goal has nothing to do with the grade. I don't grade on word count.
Okay.
And so, like, when you're first starting with Spanish 1, is an and, or but kind of considered a more complex sentence for them?
It is, but it's a B. Because but you have to think about this is where that instruction level comes in. If you only speak to your students in short, choppy sentences, that's all they'll ever do. So you have to engage all of your students. So your low-level students only hear the simple sentences. Your average kids will hear the and, or, but sentences. And your top kids will hear those complex. I repeat it. How many people have heard the book Pobriana? So read the book, so you know? Okay. You ask a low-level kid, is that first paragraph repetitive? No, not at all. Ask a mid-level kid. I can see a little repetition. The top kid, it is extremely repetitive because it says the same thing in 13 sentences. There's a girl named Anna. Anna has problems. Anna has problems with her parents. Anna has problems with her friends. Anna has problems with her siblings. Anna is a normal girl with many, many problems. It says the same thing over and over again. But the low kids need all those repetitions to get the whole idea of the paragraph. And so I'll say things. Class, there is a dog. The dog's name is Frank. Class, there's a dog, and his name is Frank. That dog. Oh my gosh, there's a dog whose name is Frank, who is fat. So the low kids only heard those simple sentences. The rest were blah, 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 blah. It's like Peanuts talking and Snoopy. But the other kids are starting to get it. If I want them to be able to get to, but it's repetitive. It's a brand new sentence that I'm saying that way. I've already broke it down into parts. So if you only speak in short, choppy sentences, then your kids are only going to be able to produce short, choppy. But I'm just doing multiple levels of sentences that I'm repeating myself over and over again, and assign a kid a job that. A kid who's a top kid, I want you to listen for my short sentences, and I want you to and you mark those, and I want you to listen for my because, therefore, since questions. And so I want them to hear that so I can get a kind of a feel for if I'm hitting them enough. But I got to give some place for them to grow. And if they never hear it, they'll never be able to produce it. So yes, in my first one, I'll have kids who can write because sentences and ands are or sentences because I use them enough. They won't have a therefore or a since, not in the first one for the beginning. And I use por eso for therefore in Spanish, so that's what I use for them right away. And they'll get that usually by second half of the year. They'll be doing that one quite a bit. Yep.
So you only grade 2 at random over the course of the semester. And so the other times that you're not grading them, do you just look at them and you don't fill out a rubric?
Stamp. Bing.
Okay. So you only fill out your rubric on the one you grade?
Yep. But the rubric's on the back of every single one, so there's no clue that this is the one who's grading because there's a rubric on the back. The rubric's on every single one. Yep.
Do kids ever write the stories that you tell in class? Is that acceptable? Like you're
I would
about-
encourage it because that's low level.
Okay.
That's application. It's memorization. It's what they remembered. They're not creating language, and I want to grade on creating. I don't encourage it. I don't discuss it. I don't talk about it, so it rarely happens. If you keep asking kids to do retells after retells, rewrite the story you did. Tell me what you did. Tell me. Then they're going to be accustomed to doing that, and they're going to redo that there. What I usually have is they pick a story they like, and they keep writing the same story week after week, and then I throw in a wrench like I want them to do, like the cat farted. So they'll write the first part of the story they always write, and halfway through they'll put in the cat farted, that kind of thing. That's what I usually happen. And I'll put a comment, you need to write a different story each week.
That's a good idea, though, for ideas for kids to tell them they can continue. Like, I could see some of my kids doing soap opera type of things. You know, like
Well, that's not what they're doing. They're writing the same story over and over again. And the only reason, because I've given them 3 times you can write whatever you want. So they write the same story, but now I threw in this wrench that the kid next to them, they write the same story to get the maximum. But, and I just write a note to them. Please, I've read it's the same story. Can we move on to something different? And if I notice it happening with a lot of kids, I don't 13 about the cat that farted today. Everybody's writing about that today. What about the kid who likes their paper all marked up? We talked who wants doesn't. See you before after school. We talk about this. We can skip through that. You'll sit down with them. They may or may not benefit from it, but it makes them feel more in control of their writing. So that's all there is for the quick writes. But there's nothing more to the assessment piece than I just told you. But here's that secret that I promised you. Shh. It's that super secret that I promised that I tell you at the end. You know, the one that would change your teacher life? The one that would save your sanity? The one that would give you more free time? Free time with your children? Free time with your dog? Free time with your spouse? Free time with that special someone? Free time for yourself, gosh forbid? Free time with your secret lover? Shh, we won't tell. Well, here it is. Drum roll, please. Grade only 1 class set per week. I roll a dice. That's what tells me which one to roll. I told you it takes me 45 minutes to read a class set. I'm done. And I read another one next week. I get my life back. I don't have to spend and bring home the paperwork, all those papers to grade. You think, well, I had them right every week. I got to grade them every week. No, I don't even read them. I don't even read them on the other weeks. The kid goes, I didn't get a stamp on this, you didn't read mine. I'm like, I'm so sorry. As soon as they're at an eye shot, I stamp it, put it in my outbox right away. Then the kids go, they turn in, you got to read it, it's really good. I got to read that one because they're going to ask me about it tomorrow. But then they don't warn me. They go, did you read mine? It was awesome. I'm like, I don't remember which one was yours. It was about Spider-Man. Oh, yeah, that was a great one. I had no idea. That's right. I said it. I'm giving you permission to grade only one class set of essays per week. This is an unfortunate decision because I feel like they have to read every single one of those. And English teachers bring home suitcases of papers. Just because you have them right does not mean they have to read every single one of them. There isn't that much progress. So just pick one. Work easier. Here. Okay, we got to get our break.